everybody. Welcome to Psychic Nerds 55. Surrounded by all my friends here, the ever young, buff, and strong Tarzan, Phil, Lost Shaker, Techno Cowgirl, and I'm glad we got to meet Techno Cowboy here recently, so that's cool. We got the Queen, got Bliss, Human Avatar, got Han, and I'm hoping he will talk about his culinary prowess today a little bit. Mr. Spartan, Rudy Largo, Samantha Jane James, Mary M, Dee Dee, and the Ghost Santino down there. What a week in cryptos, you guys, huh? Holy cannolis. How are we feeling about this 55K or so Bitcoin? How are we all feeling about that?
Feeling vindicated. Up, baby. That's all I say. Up. And people are like, it's supposed to crash? No, maybe just a little, but remember, up, up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got those jaggeds.
So are we talking, do we want to call October Uptober, or are we leaning towards Pumptober? Or anybody else got any good ideas?
Uptober.
Okay, cool. Kind of like pumpkin.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I heard somebody else, somebody was quoting $40,000 Ethereum too. So
okay, so tell us about this. You have my interest.
You puts another zero on the bank account.
You tell.
I know. Well, we all piled in last year when it was like between 120, and some of the latecomers paid maybe 200 for their ETH. But
yeah,
we all rode that up 10 times easily, and now it's more. And I didn't realize I didn't even have a blab on Ethereum, and then it just came out. Just like earlier when I was talking about the 700 days of darkness for Canada, that just came up this morning in the blab.
So let me give a little teaser. If you don't get the whole show, I wish you would. And if you only get the sampler, I hope you enjoy it. So some things we're going to talk about today. I would love for you to expound on that blab, if you wouldn't mind later when we get going, Sam, because that was pretty interesting and I missed a little bit of it in the green room. And I think people will find that very, very interesting. I want to talk about these Bitcoin ETFs. I want to talk about the explosion of NFTs quarter after quarter. We were also talking in the green room about agricultural technologies and possibly, marijuana technologies around the world that have really progressed kind of that science forward, and how that might parlay into agriculture in the future, and food production as we get into some weather changes. We're also going to try and talk about the Pandora Papers, but I have not combed over the 11.9 million confidential documents. But
slacker.
But we'll do our best. And I'm sure we'll cover some other things that pop up in. Spartan will also be doing some charts here and kind of showing us where we're at. So first thing I kind of want to talk about is why don't we talk about this Bitcoin ETF? So there's a few that are coming due this month. And I'm still feeling a really great feeling about that, about potential Bitcoin ETFs in the United States. We've seen the ETFs and the other ones, the ETNs, pop up all over the world, Canada, Germany. I could go on and on, but they're kind of popping up left and right, allowing people to move specific funds in there. And if I can find my link here. Just yesterday, and I think this was right after our crypto review yesterday, Sam. Basically, the SEC approved a Bitcoin ETF that provides exposure to crypto-based firms. So at least, I need to close that. So great. Anyway, so this SEC, it looks like right after the crypto review yesterday, the SEC approved a Bitcoin ETF that provides exposure to crypto-based firms. So it's not really the one we were hoping for and looking for. And this one was not even necessarily on my radar of the ones I was speaking of. But what this is doing is it's allowing basically an ETF for people to have exposure, right, in certain monies and certain allocated monies, certain flavors of monies, to get exposure to companies holding Bitcoin. So we have things like MicroStrategy, Tesla, some other things like this. So what do you guys think about this?
That wasn't a big deal for them to approve that. I don't know if people know that or not. This was just really, all it is an exchange traded fund that it's allocating, just like if companies had bought, exposure to gold, for example. They could have done the same type of ETF. There's no sort of regulatory limitations to that. You just have to go through the process and submit your prospectus, pay your couple of $100,000 to your legal people, and then the Securities Commission approves it. It's the exchange traded funds that trade directly in cryptocurrencies. That's going to be a huge deal when it gets approved in the US. And I feel that them approving that now for this very easy one, just where it's an exchange traded fund, that, I mean, they could have an exchange traded fund, companies that all start with the letter S.
Absolutely.
That's what I mean. Like it's not a problem, but it shows you where they're headed. And I feel like this is going to open the door to an American Bitcoin or cryptocurrency exchange traded fund by December.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And anybody else have any thoughts on this?
The thought that comes to me quite a bit is, I'm at that point where I have a pretty significant 401k with my company, right? And if I'm worried about a pending stock market collapse, it's places like this I would want to park my money. And then you further have to think about, does it make sense to leave a job so you can pull your funds out and do more of a self-directed and actually save that much money, as opposed to sticking in your job for 3 more months while this collapse happens? So these are big decisions, and these types of things probably make that a little bit easier once you know that you have some certainty on where you can put your money.
Yeah. Spartan, I know when Michael Saylor was kind of first busting onto the scene and exposing MicroStrategy, you described this in a very unique way that I think was very eye-opening. I know it was eye-opening to me when you kind of, and I'm going to use the wrong language, so help me, but you talked about it, that this was almost a fund that he was setting up basically inside the company, right? That he was almost backdooring, setting up almost like an investment fund for Bitcoin, but filtered through MicroStrategy. And I've heard other wealthy individuals say things like, it's going to be easier for me to move specific funds into something like a MicroStrategy than it will even be for me to custody Bitcoin. So can you just kind of talk about that a little bit, your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Just to back up 1 second, when we're talking about the crypto the Bitcoin ETF, they're expecting one to get under Section 40, which is on the commodities side. So we're expecting to get an ETF possibly by the end of the month, but it's not going to buy Bitcoin. It's going to be a manufactured Bitcoin ETF utilizing futures. So that's one thing that we're expecting first. So that'll be a start, but then down the road we'll probably get the second ETF. But Michael Saylor, he went into his board of directors. It's only a year ago. It was like last fall, and he wanted to use some of the $500,000 on the balance sheet and buy Bitcoin. Since then, he's put over $3 million into Bitcoin between different convertible bond offerings, different levels of debt and equity type programs within the Microsoft balance sheet. And he's accumulated like $3 billion worth of crypto. And his cost basis on it, I believe, is around 27,000, from where it was. So he's clearly doubled his money. He's making money for shareholders, but he's personally invested in it, and he's totally leveraged the company. The company, the bonds that he issued were at like 75 basis points or 2 to 3%. So it's really, really inexpensive money for him to borrow. And if you believe Bitcoin's gonna earn more than 3% a year for the next 10 years, the leveraging of the company makes sense.
It really does.
And he goes, even if we just do half of what it's done for the last decade, if we average 100% a year, that company's going to be worth, way more than what Amazon's worth now.
Yeah.
So I don't think people realize the power of what he's put on the balance sheet yet. And eventually he'll figure out, he's a Bitcoin maximalist. He's not really that diversified, compared to Raoul Pal, who was a big proponent of Bitcoin a year ago. And now his portfolio is about 70% Ethereum, 5% Bitcoin, and the rest in what he calls, alts that have a big social following, for the social effect.
Well, they were
Did I answer
talking
your
about
question?
Cardano.
It's like I talked in circles.
They were
That's
talking
it.
about Cardano, Algorand, Layer 1 solutions on Bloomberg and CNBC the last 2 days. Could you imagine, those outlets talking about that? So, this whole SEC thing and this whole, exchange traded fund stuff, this is all great news, but they're not doing it for benevolent reasons. They have no choice but to, right? It's not like, oh, let's give the people something. No. They're afraid they're going to get eaten by crypto, right? They're like, crypto is saying, let me into the club or we'll start our own club and you will become irrelevant, right? So they see the pressure building and building. They need to open up a release valve. The ETFs is like a release valve to let the demand that is waiting to come into crypto, allow them in a way that won't destabilize, their little, monetary institutional system. So this is all out of self-preservation. They don't want these ETFs. They're regulating them out of self-preservation. That's why they're doing it. They're shitting their pants, actually.
Yeah. This is great. Let's circle back to the potential ones in October. Okay. So, let me just go ahead and try and share this. So the ones in question here for the rest of October are the ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF, the Invesco, Bitcoin Strategy ETF, the VanEck Bitcoin Strategy ETF, and the Valkyrie Bitcoin Strategy ETF. I just want to go around the horn. You don't have to give an answer. Do we think that one of these will be approved, at least one, in the month of October, or do you think we're going to have to wait? I do think, I'll go first, I do think one of these will get approved in October. So let's see.
I think it will. And ProShares has a huge, I used to do a lot of business with ProShares. They have like 1x, 2x, and 3x type funds in every sector. They have, sectors plus the different asset classes. So that's a very big company that has a lot of experience building these types of products. So I would not be surprised to see them go first. Invesco, we've traded Invesco funds in the past, because I was a financial advisor for 30 years before we scrapped it all and went into crypto. So
Right.
I'm very familiar with these companies, but I think ProShares has the best chance of getting approved based on their experience.
Is this the paper one you were referencing?
Yeah.
It's not real Bitcoin, but it's just paper exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They do those like a 3x S&P 500 or NASDAQ, but they're doing it in the futures market.
Okay. I've heard high net worth individuals now starting to petition banks about, hey, we need or want exposure to this. What products do you have for us? And I feel like in turn, they're beginning now to put some pressure on legislature. So we'll see how that all shakes out. And I found this one to be very, very interesting, kind of back to what Santino was saying is, and a lot of us have been saying for a long time, but, Bank of America came out with this basically global cryptocurrencies and digital assets, basically a digital asset primer talking about DeFi, NFTs, Ethereum. This is just, how cool is this? Bank of America is about as mainstream as it gets. And then US Bank is now offering custody to high net worth individuals for actual custody of crypto, which is just amazing.
There is some amazing, there's some amazing information. I've seen other YouTube channels that have pulled bits out of that. I've tried to Google it every which way. I emailed a Merrill Lynch broker that I know. It's like, I'm trying to get my hands on that report, but it's amazing of what's actually in there.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the retail side versus the investment side, just your regular bank customers versus the investment. The pressure is coming from the investment side. That's for sure. And then I think that then pulls the retail banking into it later.
I think there'll be pressure to get this ETF done because these brokers don't want to give up the assets and they're flying out the door for crypto right now.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Capital's being sucked out. It's being sucked out. And one thing that has caused that, which has really shaken the legacy markets, is what Bitcoin has done to gold over the last 2 years. It has soundly pounded gold into submission. that money that usually would go into metals and gold is escaping into Bitcoin. That catches the attention of legacy markets. Not so much people in crypto, because they're in their little crypto world, but outside of the crypto world, that is a major, they are completely dumbfounded that is happening completely. And what it's done is it's cemented in their mind that Bitcoin is something to be reckoned with. It's real, right? If it can pound the shit out of gold, gold should be much, much higher than it is now. There's no reason it shouldn't be, except for Bitcoin, right? So this has changed the mindset of legacy. This one thing has changed the mindset of legacy.
Boy, it's just
And
amazing.
Yeah, let's look at something real quick here.
Sure.
I don't want to do all the charts now, but I wanted to show this one.
Sure.
Like this is why I believe this is a total market cap. This is why I believe we're on the verge of a major breakout.
Oh wow, we're right at the line.
And Santino posts these all the time, but if you look at this chart, we got the cup and handle, which is very popular, and we're right on the breakout line right now. So if total market cap gets here above 2.5 trillion, that's where we get another explosive move.
Gosh, and it'll be nothing to zip past that 3 trillion.
I know.
Sam, what do you think of this? Holy noise.
I know, it seems like it's, it's not as surreal for me anymore to see these things that I predicted coming true, just because I think there's been, working with the Sam Jammers, there's hundreds of people who've been working with me since early 2019 when I decided to start the Grand Experiment. And for those people who don't know what the Grand Experiment is, it is somebody who's never worked as a medium before in their life, who apparently has Edgar Casey type level abilities as far as psychic medium goes. And everybody knows, not everybody, but a lot of people, especially those of us in the plus 40 age group, we all know who Edgar Casey is.
Yep.
And he didn't even have a lot of education. He only had grade 6 education. So can you imagine now somebody who has these type of abilities, but with the higher level of education and then access to the social media so that I can create something like this? It's just been amazing for my learning curve. I mean, talk about something going straight up, not just the cryptocurrencies has gone straight up, but also my abilities with the thanks of everybody participating in the Grand Experiment. So, a while back when I was talking about up, and the market was barely pressing, 400 billion. And it was a big struggle getting from the 160 billion up to the 400 billion and getting people to hang on. Right. But then we made that huge move and it went so fast and so far. But before that, I was talking about it going to 3 trillion. And I said, if it goes to 3 trillion, then I can see it making a quick move to 8 trillion. And so then as I get closer to the shore, I guess, or closer to the timeline, I felt like if we hit 3 trillion by like the end of September, middle of October, in that time range, because sometimes, I can be a few weeks off. I'm looking at it from a long distance, right? The situation, it's hard to explain to people, but when you're looking at it from far away, you try to get the timeline the best you can. But even getting the season, I think, is a good hit. But if we hit 3 trillion, I think there's a pretty good chance we're going to see 8 trillion either before the end of the year, or at least at a minimum by April of 2022. 2022, I feel, is going to be absolutely, mind-blowing. It's mind-numbing how much it's going to go up. So get ready. A lot of us who've been in the market since 2017, we will probably unload at least half of our cryptos in 2022, just because of the insanity of keeping the money for that much longer. I was talking to my assistant this morning and I was like, a lot of us got Cardano at like 4 cents, at 10 cents. Between there, our dollar cost average is like 7 cents. Do you really want to hold it to $150, like all of it? Or when it goes to something like $100, you could take 10% of your holdings. And if you have a full bag, you have 100,000 Cardano. So you could sell like 10,000 Cardano at $100 a pop. Take that $1 million out and you still got 90,000 Cardano. Why would you not do that, just to release the pressure and also release some Cardano into the ecosystem? And people who buy that 10,000 Cardano at $100 a pop, you'll have one person who bought 3 Cardano and another person bought 100 Cardano. So then you're increasing. See, people don't understand. It's like, yes, you may hold 100, 200, 300,000 of Cardano. And that was easier to get when it was like 4 cents.
Yeah.
But, you know, once it goes to $10, $20, when you're selling it off in any large sum, I mean, I wouldn't bother unless I'm pressing the button on a few thousand, right? You're releasing it and you're increasing well, they were talking earlier about going with the cryptocurrencies that have the large following, you know,
Yeah.
and so that's what you're doing for Cardano. Like when I sold my Doge earlier, when I sold some of that off, it was in tranches of 100,000 Doge each, because I got those for 0.00084,
Yeah.
right? So it was easy. Oh, here's 100,000. But how many people bought that Doge at 40 cents or 60 cents? You know, because if they bought 1,000 of those, they paid 4,000 or 6,000, depending on, right? So you can look at least 100 people bought that 100,000 of Doge that I released. So now the community is that much bigger, because a lot of people write me and they're like, Samantha Jane, if you're sure that Doge is going to over $1, why would you sell any of it at under $1? And I'm just like, well,
Yeah.
because that's the right thing to do. Just do the right thing. You got in early enough and spread. You've heard that saying, spread the wealth. So I see 2022 as just being such a tremendous year. But again, oh my gosh, you know, it's just going to be absolutely bananas, because
Does it take your breath away? Does it take your breath away?
Yes.
Yeah,
it
it takes
does.
my breath away. It's just amazing. We're here, aren't we? We're here. I guess, you know, a big concern, a big a scare that people have is that the stock market, the legacy markets, are going to get punched in the mouth as we take off. And a lot of us feel like we're right here, right now. We're about to take off. So, any thoughts about that, anybody? About, do these legacy markets get punched in the mouth as we try and make that 3 trillion, 4 trillion, 8 trillion? And how does that affect cryptos?
I think the legacy markets gets punched in the mouth multiple times,
And
not
you
just
think
once.
cryptocurrency just becomes anti-fragile and resistant to the being socked in the mouth as we continue?
Even if it is, it's anti-fragile, anti-resistant in the end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so even if crypto by any kind of association with the traditional market is punched in the mouth, it's still going to be standing at the end where traditional is going to be on its knees.
Legacy markets may correct, but we haven't hit the euphoric highs yet. That's still in front of us. So all these people, the fact that so many are, giving predictions about market collapse coming soon, any day now, next week, any day now, tells me that we're nowhere near a market collapse. The market collapse usually comes when everybody's capitulated and said, well, I guess this thing is just going to keep going higher. When everybody says that, that's when it'll collapse. But that we're looking at much higher levels in the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. And, for now, that will help keep crypto, very, very excited, right? There's going to come a day where they completely decouple. We're starting to see evidence of that now. We're getting a small glimpse of that, but that's not a process that just happens overnight. It takes time for that to happen. But either way, my projections point to much higher levels in the indices. And the fact that everybody thinks it's going to crash, everybody and their dog thinks it's going to crash, tells me that that's not what's going to happen. Will we correct? Yeah, we've had a nice 10% correction already. Could it go another 3 or 4%, scare the crap out of everybody? Maybe, but this ain't over. It'll be sometime next year that we'll see a major crash that takes us years to recover from. That's also ahead of us. But I don't think we have to have the euphoric high first. The crash has to come from euphoric levels.
Thank you for that.
We're not there yet. Yeah.
I think that'll alleviate a lot of fears. Yeah.
Well, I was just watching for the 40 to 42,000.
Okay.
Like, I'm sticking with that. And I've told people that. I said, I told someone when it was at 18,000, I was like, he was afraid to put it in. He thought that big crash was coming. I was like, no, it's going to go up to like 42,000. And I'm sure he still has that in his text messages at this point. Right. And he never put any more money. He didn't put his money back in to the market. But yeah, I feel like I agree with Santino that it's going to be probably more like next year, December at the earliest. And the fact that a lot of people are saying this is not going to make it happen. I did notice, talk about mainstream people who have a lot more in the way of following than I do. Another person was talking about how the scared money will flow into cryptocurrencies. And really, I would have to say that this is the first time that you've seen like a big stock market correction. And then we saw the money flowing into, it didn't affect the cryptocurrencies. The cryptocurrencies, kept going up. So, I think that there's going to be more of that to come. And the cryptocurrencies are just going to have their own, they're going to march to the beat of their own drum. But you just have to be careful not to FOMO, because you saw with Solana, for example, people were taking a profit. So it's more about that. And with the legacy stock markets, I think what starts to peel off next year is that the extreme losses from the car companies and like the pandemic stuff that happened and the energy crisis, and it's really going to slam them. But then they're going to look into the books and they're going to be like, man, they cooked the books. Well, you can't cook blockchain. I mean, right now people are trying to figure out which blockchains are the best, and all they have to do is look on the public ledger and see which ones are the most active. There's no cooking the books on blockchain. And so once people figure that out, we're going to have it made in the shade. So I heard somebody talking about cryptos are going to collapse, and, we're going they have to do something about cryptos. They're fine with it. Who's they? They're fine with it as like baseball trading cards, right? But once it becomes a currency, and I'm like, this dummy, he doesn't get it. He doesn't realize it's over. It's over. All of them who screwed it up, they screwed the pooch so badly. They were so greedy and they took so much for themselves. It's over. And if you're not in cryptos, then you need to be, and you still got plenty of time, because even the people who are screaming that cryptos are going to collapse, they are going to roll over and start investing in cryptos by December, because it's going to become clear to them they were wrong, so many ways wrong.
So Sam, the Soviet Union fell for a variety of reasons. Most of them were around greed at the upper echelons. Would you say the same is tending to reflect here in other markets?
Yes, I especially say
US?
Europe. No, I would say like in particular, the people, the most like the largest percentage of population who are actually going to die from this greed is going to be Europe and the UK. This is going to be the largest percentage of people who are going to be killed because of this greed. Now, Canada and the US, they have too much going for them. Canada just has way too much in the way of riches under their feet. The US has a lot of things going for themselves, actually a very rich country as well, but they have 10 times more people to feed and to support. So that's a lot more difficult, but they have their military, and that is not to be, you don't ever forget about the American military, and also the fact that they are bordered by only 2 countries, and then they have the ocean as protection. So at one point, it's almost going to be like in North America and Mexico, totally different world from Europe and the UK, what those people are experiencing over there. It's going to become very scary, but the Europeans are going to get their pampered asses handed to them. And they just turned a blind eye for way too many years. They kept electing these people, just grasshoppers kept electing other grasshoppers. And the ants made a run for it a long time ago.
Yeah. Quick yes, no, if we can go around the horn just to cover a few more things before we get into charts. But do you think we will see an acceleration of capital flight from China into blockchain?
Yes.
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 Very much.
For sure. Do we think we'll see an acceleration of legacy markets here in North America into blockchain?
Yes.
Yeah.
Boy,
I think to the tune of such a massive amount that we're not all the normies will not be able to understand it
They're
because
gonna
they
have to
don't
run
have
like
enough
hell.
knowledge yet, But I see the whole, every industry is going to translate over.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
soon as, the really good, easy to build apps come, easy to integrate, they can just basically port their old systems over into a new system.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know Europe, behind the scenes, Europe and those financial institutions are running towards DeFi as fast as they can go.
I think we see 100 trillion in 2022.
So let's talk about some numbers. I was not going to talk about this, but let's do it. I don't know if anybody here is a fan of Dan Held. He can kind of be a pompous ass sometimes, for lack of a better word. But, he's a Bitcoin convert. He's a crypto convert and a successful entrepreneur and everything else, very opinionated. So if you want to be entertained, go watch and see what he talks about. But I thought this was pretty amazing. I mean, this is 36.8 trillion. Is the number he's talking about here. 98% of retirement accounts in the US can't access Bitcoin. That's 36.8 trillion. What happens when they do? Holy crap. A lot of us have been running this race a long time. And I think that I can't imagine being a normie or a new person coming in right now. Their heads are literally going to spin off their shoulders because mine is going to spin off its shoulders.
Well, they wouldn't be able to put that much into Bitcoin. It would destroy Bitcoin just in the process of doing it.
That's why they're building futures markets.
Yeah.
Those numbers are the reason they're building futures markets. Yeah. So that they are building the road, right? They're laying down the regs and they're building the road because they know this capital is coming in with or without them. And so that way, if it goes through your, what do you guys call them, IRAs down there or whatever?
Yep.
Or
IRAs.
if it go right, they can tax them, they can monitor them, they can control it with futures, they can control Bitcoin, right? They can try and control the flow of crypto. This is an entire plan to try and slow down and control the critical mass event that is on the horizon that they know is coming. When we hit that critical mass, all these funds, all these people are going to want in, even if they don't, they'll go, the discussion will go something like this. Why don't I have any exposure to Bitcoin and crypto, right? Okay, put 2% of my whatever worth into that, 3%, 4%. And they're all going to want to do it at the same time. So they're building the roadway for people to do that so that they can manage it. They believe that they can manage what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Now, at least the mixed blessing there is there'll be no more naked shorts in that regard.
The problem is there's going to be such demand of the people that want to put part of their 401k dollars in Bitcoin or Ethereum, but the administrators and until we have an ETF, they can't add it. Pro shares and pro funds, they're in some 401k plans, but very, very few. Invesco might have a better chance of getting into the 401k market, but they'd all have to be self-directed type plans, and most plans just have a limited number of funds that are available. So it's gonna be a while before it hits the government market like that. If you have a rollover IRA, you can go to I Trust Capital and buy 20 different cryptos with a great selection. But
That's
it's gonna be a
basically
long
what
time
he's saying.
before that 38 or 36 billion is even close to getting into the market.
Trillion.
These legacy organizations, they are hurting for people who are in compliance, who also understand cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology, because you have to think about all the ways that people have to get their know your client done, ways that people can launder money. Like, you have to think about all these ways. And then when the Securities Commission comes to you, you have to show them what you as an organization have in place to flag money laundering and report it, etc. And this is the problem that they're running into, is that there are not enough compliance people. I kid you not, if you are in the legacy financial market, if you have anything more than even 10 years